Warm greetings from the High 10. It is Everyday Shenanigans. Thanks for joining me. Hope you all had a wonderful weekend. Please be safe this week and happy holidays to the viewing audience. This is a deep dive into the Idaho 4 student slayings. Is there a suspect in mind? And who was the intended target? It is believed that all four, but do I believe that all four of the young people were the intended target, plural, or were they just collateral damage? You're entitled to your interpretation. Because one could say, well, they went from room to room, so they must have wanted all four deceased. But then two were left behind. Why not those two? Because four people is a lot of people to have an issue with. Was it really just the three? But they killed the guy because he happened to be in the same bed with one of the targets, intended targets, allegedly. What is the truth? What do they have so far as evidence? Naturally, it will take a long time to dump 6 cell phones, visitor cell phones, other people that they talk to on a daily basis, periodically. We're going to dissect all that said information. It will possibly be a bit winded because I have a lot of audio to play, but all information is verifiable through a source. You're entitled to your interpretation of the information. Thank you for joining me. If you'd like to donate to this great network, $McGandy, 129 Cash App. All stickers and chats are welcome during this live. Prayers to the family for answers and justice. And also, will someone start a reward fund? Because that is something I have not heard mentioned pertaining to the 4 victims. Will there be an award for all 4 victims? News Nation is the source. Questions loom over Idaho student murders. Thank you for joining me.
But first, the looming question surrounding the grisly stabbing deaths of 4 Idaho college students. 2 weeks have now passed since police began investigating the case, still without identifying a suspect. And police have spent days tracking down potential witnesses who scattered home for Thanksgiving break. Why the police are now keeping key details about the case from the public. An Idaho State policeman saying, quote, it will potentially put more fear, more suspicion on a wide variety of people versus if we use that to really refine where we're at in our investigation, adding, if we just provide information to the public, I just don't think that that's going to be a wise choice. Let's bring in former FBI agent Jennifer Coffendorfer. Jennifer, thank you so much for being here.
Yes, it's good to be here.
Thank you. It's not just the public asking investigators for information. We also know the father of one of the victims, 20-year-old Kaylee Gonsalves, speaking out. He says he has not gotten an update either since before Thanksgiving. And when it comes to the stop of flow of information, Idaho police saying that it will potentially put more fear, more suspicion on that wide variety of people. What do you make of that? Where are they in their investigation now?
Well, I think that they really haven't made much progress in terms of narrowing down who did this atrocious crime. Sadly, it's just going to be difficult because of the amount of information they're working with. It's just going to take time for them to narrow down all that information, particularly from the cell phones, from the cameras, any geofencing they've done. All of that takes time to return that information so they can work with it.
And I want us to pause to hear what Idaho Police Communications Director Aaron Snell said today. Let's take a listen to that.
We do not have a suspect and we do not have a person of interest at this time. We are building, again, as you mentioned before, we're building a profile, we're building a picture, we're trying to put all the pieces together. And when the time comes, we will most definitely put that information out as quickly as we can.
Now, in what ways can an investigation like this be compromised, releasing information to the public or to victims' families?
Well, it can be compromised very seriously in terms of prosecution, and this is why. Imagine if all these details came out and now you're interviewing witnesses and you don't know whether the information they're telling you is coming from what they heard in a public forum or venue or what they personally saw. So it's important to keep the integrity of the information in terms of interviewing people.
Yeah, something that you highlighted for our producers was the potential importance of geofencing in this investigation. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yes, it is so important. It's such a crucial thing that they can do in a situation like this where they don't have a subject. Because what they're going to do is basically set up a parameter, and they're going to be able to pull all cellular information, Google information. It's a wide net of subpoena authority that will enable them to obtain anybody and everybody using a device in that area during that particular time frame.
And Jennifer, you're looking at one of the victims' moms being arrested days after the killings. Can you talk about what you're tracking there?
Yes, taking a look at just every sort of avenue that might, intersect or interplay with this atrocious crime. Law enforcement has to look at all these avenues. They have to check them off one by one, no matter how remote that possibility might be that this could be related to those arrests of that individual, the mother of Santa. So they're going to be looking at all of that, and as well they should. Every avenue has to be followed.
And police have so far ruled out that the murders are not related to the 1999 double stabbing in Pullman, Washington, the 2021 double stabbing in Salem, Oregon. Is there anything in particular that stands out to you with your background in this moment that you think warrants further investigation?
No, I have to say no. I've looked at both of those cases they're referring to, and there's just not enough markers that really show the same type of situation. For instance, one, it was a burglar. He wore a mask. There was a fight that ensued with the husband. He saved the wife, who sustained, I believe, around 19 wounds. But it was just different. In the other situation, it was very far away, about a 5-hour drive. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense also because police have said, and they are steadfast in this is targeted. So they're not looking for markers of a serial killer to link to other crimes. They are looking at this targeted situation.
Jennifer, it's always good speaking with you. Jennifer Coffendorfer, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Natasha.
Thank you for watching.
News Nation is the source. Targeted crime. What proof do they have? Allegedly, whatever was left at the scene has led them to believe that this was a targeted crimes, plural. But do we believe this? Because we have seen a mistake was made in the Debbie Collier case as a target. She was targeted, but then we later find out she allegedly killed herself. They say she killed herself. So could these officers have made a mistake in this? No suspect, no profile. No details mentioned as to preserve the investigation, compromise the investigation. What is the evidence so far? How many phones have they pinged? How many phones have pinged in the general area pertaining to anybody that knows the victims, friends, family, neighbors? How many people have they talked to, interviewed? I'll bring that information briefly. Any of the people that have been cleared, will they be revisited again during this investigation? Because as information comes in, anything can change because this is an ongoing investigation. The mother of one of the girls, Kaylee, was arrested. What was she arrested for? And does it have any relations to the quadruple stabbings? Were any codes given out to anybody that the victims knew and or the two remaining roommates? I noticed that there was a ladder sitting on the side of the building of this house. How far does that ladder stretch up? Because one could say if a person had a sidekick, they could have helped the person climb onto the balcony if indeed the ladder didn't reach the balcony. And still, how did the perpetrators get into this house? Was their door left unopened, a glass door, window? You hear that this crime has no relation to two other crimes that took place. And that one that took place in Oregon, Salem, Oregon, it was a Caucasian couple, young. They were young, stabbed 19 times. The husband was fighting the perpetrator. He ended up dying and saving his wife. But the thing I did find interesting is that the couple were young. I do not know the ages, but they were young. I saw the pictures tonight. They were not an older couple. And that is a 6-hour window from this town. But if you don't know who the killers are, could it be a drifter? Somebody came through and hung out, watched these kids, as in watching those two young people back in Oregon, and decided to play funny games with the 4 victims, because we do not know who the perpetrator is. So I find it interesting. No suspects, no profile. But don't they sometimes have profiles? When a crime has been committed, someone starts to put a profile together, try to put some type of ideal of who could have done this. Race, background, age. What is the age of the perpetrators? 20-year-olds, teenagers, middle-aged? Also been mentioned in many commentaries that a woman couldn't have done this. Women couldn't have done this. Well, women do kill people every day. The only reason why you don't want to believe it was a woman did this because a man died, and you would assume that he woke up during the stabbing and would have fought the woman off. But if she had help, either by another man or another woman, they possibly could have used something to subdue the person besides a knife, such as a hammer, a bat. So let's ask, was anybody else hit with another object besides a knife? Curious. Coffin Dafford says, don't believe it's a serial killer because of the other 2 crimes that people have sent the tip in, assuming that they might be related to these other 2 double stabbings in Oregon and somewhere else. But how do we know it's not a serial killer? Because a serial killer can still target his or her victim if they had been watching and or stalking the person. So I don't believe that's cannot be relevant, because in order to pick a victim, I don't have to necessarily pick a victim that day. I could watch him or her and make my move. Thank you for joining me. Now play video number 2. News Nation was that first source if you need verification. Thank you so much for joining me. It's a lot to digest because it's just a sad situation. These children snuffed out like this. Very, very scary. 3 days ago, information came pertaining to this case. Investigators sifting through messes of evidence. What is the evidence left behind? What have they gathered thus far pertaining to the victims and the possible suspects? News Nation is the source of this information as well.
Situation like this, the person who did this had to come in some way, and there aren't very many points of entry that are accessible to somebody. There are trace evidence experts, there's blood spatter experts, there's a lot of different kinds of analysis that needs to be made in a complicated situation like this. There are 2 ways of actually identifying somebody from evidence, and that's fingerprints and DNA analysis. So you could very well turn up the name of somebody through this kind of procedure.
Just can't imagine how hard it would be to track down all the people who've been in and out of that house for the parties and the fun, and the tenants over the years, to make sure that they're eliminated from the samples that they may end up finding from the killer. Greg, let me get you in on this. Having worked on the Amanda Knox case, it's eerie. I know it's different, but again, it involved a stabbing. It was very mysterious. DNA played a huge role in it. There was a small town. The people there were very impatient to get results, and Amanda was wrongfully convicted. I'm wondering if you see any parallels or any concerns in the way this case is progressing.
Yeah, there's a lot of eerie parallels, as you said, and really, we have another case in Idaho that I worked on, which is the Angie Dodge murder, and Christopher Tapp, that was incarcerated 20 years wrongfully for that murder. We helped the police find the man who confessed and who matches the DNA. In both of those cases, young women killed in their bedrooms, deep gashes to the neck, and a rush to find evidence to arrest the suspect. And we had huge mistakes made. And in the Angie Dodge murder in Idaho Falls, they took DNA from over 100 people. They didn't take DNA from Mr. Drips, who lived across the street, who could see into Angie's window from his house, who had no alibi for the time he was missing. The police interviewed him. They didn't have DNA. He could have been compared originally to it. So if I had any advice to the very hardworking people there on the ground, anytime they interview somebody, take a swab.
Very true.
And that can just quickly eliminate them, even if they're not considered the person.
Very true. That's great advice. Take a swab anyway.
Yeah, looking for a motive might be too early for all of us. The evidence, it's in 103 samples. They took somebody's DNA there. I'm going to guess that the perpetrator's DNA is there, and they'll be able to ID somebody.
It's hard to stab 4 people without getting some blood on your hand, and that becomes slippery, and it is easy to cut yourself, especially when some are fighting back, as we learned from the
Exactly.
corner. Listen, Larry, I've only got about 45 seconds left, but the cars that are parked out front, the kids' cars that are still left behind, I'm curious about the GPS information that might be contained in some of these newer vehicles. Wherever those kids drove to, whoever they visited prior to these killings, wouldn't you need to get those cars to a specialized garage so that you could actually take the GPS information from them to discover what the tracks were of the kids before they died?
I think that's absolutely correct. Again, we're talking digital evidence here. And along with the cars, there's the videotapes. They're looking for a video any place they can get it. Of course, it's not like New York City where you've got cameras on every building, so you can't escape being on video. But this in Moscow, they will try to get as much video as they can. They're going to go through the cell phones, their computers, their text messages.
And they've already solicited all of the Ring doorbell cams. Thank you for watching. Go to NewsNation now.
All right, everybody. News Nation, source number 2, cameras. Were there cameras on the house, inside of the house? Do any of the ladies have any cameras inside of their bedrooms as to perturb anyone from stealing out of their rooms? I do have information that a neighbor has a camera, bingo card. What will her surveillance reveal of anyone coming and going out of the house during the wee hour mornings? I will bring you a timeline of events of what the young people were doing that night up until allegedly going to sleep, because we do not know the time the perpetrators entered the house. But I assume it was possibly late, because one of the girls were up on the phone till about almost 3 a.m. trying to call an ex-friend, boyfriend. So will or has that camera shown the perpetrator coming in and out of the house, perhaps the front door? How about that? Especially if he or she had the code to get in. How did the perpetrator enter the house? Did they already have the code, or did they climb up that column to the balcony? The balcony door was unlocked. Was there a window unlocked? How did he or she get in? Very interesting information. All righty. Father of Idaho murder victim speaks out on investigation. Fox News is the source. The same guy who's speaking, reporter. I will be playing something else that he has done recently pertaining to the police department. I believe it's the State Department, or the spokesperson for the police department. He did an interview with him. So let's see what the father of one of the victims has to say about this case. Mercy.
Good evening, America, and welcome to the special edition of Cross Country on location in Moscow, Idaho. Tonight we remember Ethan, Zaina, Kaylee and Maddie. Life just getting started, cut short by a still unnamed criminal. It's been about 2 weeks since the University of Idaho students were stabbed to death in their beds while they slept in that home right behind me. This gruesome attack has shattered peace of mind here in Moscow. In a town that never used to lock their doors, locksmiths are now being flooded with calls. College students are now considering online classes. And while rumors are swirling here, everyone is in agreement on one thing. Justice must be served. We have walked this crime scene, followed the timeline of this case, and asked investigators to answer some of the many unanswered questions about this brutal crime. You'll hear from those experts later this hour. But to begin, joining me again tonight, Steve Gonzalez, father of Kaylee Gonzalez. Sir, thank you so much for joining me tonight. We continue to grieve with you and your family, and we're hoping to get answers for you. Sir, when was the last time you talked with law enforcement about the case?
Well, we just had a vacation. Law enforcement told me that they were going to drop off a little bit and not to expect the same type of communication that I had gotten before. They passed it on to another person. So basically, long story short, it was Wednesday, 5 p.m. was the last time that they reached out to me. So, yeah, that's rough.
Sir, what are they telling you?
They're kind of just telling me that they can't tell me much, which is frustrating to me because I've been very trustworthy. I do know things. I haven't shared things. We're the same family that found the original timeline. We're the same family that broke into the phones. We tried everything in our ability to try to get into this system because a court order is not the fastest thing. So we broke in and we did what we did. We know that we have some family passwords that we all share. So we broke in and we helped them. So it's hard for me to give up as a father my protective ability to other men.
Sir, they have shared with us that it was a targeted attack. Can you give us any information about that? Have they told you who the target was or given you more insight than they have the public?
I don't want to talk bad about them because these are some hard-working individuals, and I'm doomed without them. We're all doomed without them. This defund police is just a terrible idea. The fact that we're finding out that there's more than just my daughter and these children that have suffered, it's terrible to think that we can defund these guys. It's an absolute atrocity. That's not something that is political. It's not political. This is just facts, guys. We can't allow these people to just run free. So beyond that, they haven't shared a lot. We have some private detectives that have reached out to us and given us information. We take that with a grain of salt and we try to be careful. Just today, I reached out to the officers and said, hey, this guy's treated me with respect on the show. I'd like to share some things with him that I found out on my own, and they asked me to not do that. So we're holding our tongue. We're waiting patiently, but we're definitely concerned.
Yeah. So, sir, I had the opportunity to speak with those same law enforcement officials today and was able to get some information out from them as well. We want to do everything that we can do to get you answers and to solicit more information for the timeline. But there's gaps in that timeline. Is there anything that you can share with us that may put people in that direction where they would feel willing to share about that timeline?
I've heard a little bit of feedback on this that people are nervous about the timeline. I'm going to tell you guys that there's so much attention on this. If you can share your information, if you can post it, I mean, it's the internet. You can do these things anonymously. Go forward. You don't have, and for those people who are afraid, like maybe I was intoxicated or I'm underage, that's not what they care about, guys. They're not looking at that. That is not going to happen. So give your information, give out that picture, that image, that video, that
What is it that he knows that he wants to share but cannot share and been instructed not to share? What is the information? 10 p.m. to 1:30 a.m., Kaylee and Maddie at Corner Club, 202 North Main Street. 1:40 a.m., Kaylee and Maddie at the Grub Trucks, 318 South Main Street. 1:45 a.m., Kaylee and Maddie are at the Residence, 1122 King Road. We do believe these kids made it a little earlier than the other couple. I'm going to bring you that timeline. It's a very strange story, because perhaps these kids were killed later in the wee hour. I don't know. But I like to know what this father is talking about. This is Kaylee's father speaking. Sir, what is it that you know about this case or heard? Something you believe? Disbelieve? What is it you want to share, but they have instructed you not to share? I'm very curious. Thank you all for joining me.
That selfie, whatever it is, give it out and know that there's zero chance that they're coming to you for, ruining your career or your anything along those lines. They're just looking for data right now, and you could be the key. You might be something that has been overlooked. So I just implore people to come forward, especially when you know you're even close to that timeline, because technology is the only thing that doesn't lie, really. It's just data. And then we can analyze it as a society and determine what it is, but it doesn't lie. It's just simply data. So it's better than an eyewitness. It's better than anything that we can produce. It's right up there with DNA. And I just implore you, sometimes even if you think that selfie has nothing in the background, maybe there's a car that should be there. That somebody said in their alibi, I parked right here next to this tree. And then there's that tree and your car's not there.
Steve, we're going to put that number on the screen for people to call.
Thank you.
Give any information. Sir, thank you so much for coming on the program. Keep us posted on what's going on in this investigation. We'll continue to follow it. Thanks again.
All right, everybody. Fox News is source number 3. What is the father speaking of? 2, he's right. Any information is important because there may be something in a picture, photograph, selfie, video that is pertinent to this investigation. It may not seem important to you at that time, but it could be. Another thing that struck me strange is all the cars parked in front of the building at the time of the murders. Why would this person risk going into this house with all those cars there, not knowing if the people were up or not? Whether you saw lights on or not, facing the street are about what? 4 windows? But naturally there are windows, doors on the back side of the building. You don't know what the people are doing unless you've been walking around, creeping around, watching the windows and going around the back of the building, looking at all the windows and the doors. Is this what the perpetrators did on that fateful morning? They cased out the place ahead of time, found an entryway in, or was given the code to get in, or was invited in. Bingo card. Because when you look at the crime scene, all these cars are on the property, and it's like Christmas time. Bells are going off. Who would risk going into this house with all these cars here? Which would lead you to see they have company. Somebody lives here. Somebody's visiting. Stay woke. Why would anyone want to risk going into a house with a bunch of fucking cars on the property? That's what leads you to believe that the person knows these kids. It's too risky, all those cars parked. 5, 6 cars? And you're willing to try to what? Break into somebody's house because you have an issue with 1 to 4 people? Make it make sense. You don't know where they are in the house. You don't know what they're doing in the house. You don't know who's up in the house. Could be playing a board game, anything. Watching a movie. Drinking. 4 people could have been in one person's car that's parked outside. Stay woke. Possibly this is targeted and it's personal, and the people who did it They know the victims, had an issue with the victims. And what would be sick is if they invited these people in late night, they stabbed everybody up, and then left out, Heidi Ho, went on their merry way. But see, what messed you up is that there is somebody who has surveillance of that house. And I'm going to bring you that set information here shortly. Thank you for joining me. Let's go to the next source. That was Kaylee's father giving his personal opinion pertaining to the case, wanting someone to pay attention to their information. May not be relevant, but share anyway. All right. This says new details emerge after stabbing deaths of 4 Idaho college students. It's not actual new information. It's just information pertaining to 2 other crimes that have been given as tips as in possible relations to the Idaho 4. News 5 CBS is the source. Thank you so much for joining me.
Are investigating a possible connection between a brutal stabbing last year in Oregon and the stabbing deaths of 4 Idaho college students. In the case last year, a man and a woman were stabbed 19 times while they were sleeping. He died, she survived. Right now, authorities aren't sure there's a connection, but they haven't made any arrests in either of these cases.
All right, no arrests so far. Miss Coffin Daffer, ex-FBI agent, spoke briefly earlier saying she doesn't believe he's a serial killer and she doesn't believe these other 2 crimes are in relation to this crime here. But my thing is, how do we know when we don't have a suspect? If they don't have a suspects or a profile, how do you know it's not a serial killer? How do you know it's not whomever? We don't know. We will see, though. All right. Idaho State Police provides an update on the Idaho killings uploaded 18 hours ago. Fox News is the source.
Have it done. So we took our question straight to the source and sat down with Aaron Snell of the Idaho State Police earlier today. Watch. Sir, thanks so much for doing this interview with us. You're with the state police. We know the FBI is on the scene, and then you have the local police. Who is running this investigation?
Yeah, so the Moscow Police Department is running this investigation when these homicides happened. Pretty much it was all hands on deck. As a team, we're all working together for the same goal.
Good copy. Let's talk about some of the investigation. I don't want to compromise the investigation, but some of the critique or stuff circulating is the crime scene. Are you confident, and you have law enforcement experience as well, that the integrity of the crime scene was not compromised in this investigation?
I am confident that there wasn't a compromise in the integrity of the investigation. We know that the Moscow Police Department arrived on scene. They essentially saw what had occurred. They locked it down, and then additional resources came in. And we have a lot of the best technology, the latest and greatest as far as training goes. So indeed, I believe in the integrity of this investigation.
You believe, just to follow up quickly on that normal protocols were followed, witnesses separated, crime scene locked down, that you start off large and then work in smaller. When you guys decided to extend the tape a little bit, was that because there was more information brought to the table? What was your reasoning for doing that?
Yeah, so the other day we extended the crime scene. Really what we did is we just enlarged the working area for the detectives and the investigators that are actually on scene. As we have more and more information, we're able to try and piece together what occurred. When we do that, we want to go out to the scene and see how that fits in. And so it wasn't really an evidence collection situation. It was purely a workspace situation. We wanted to make sure that we held the integrity of the investigation, which is important, and so we're not enlarging and retracting the crime scene per se.
I want to follow up on that crime scene. What type of information? Because the public, when you request information from you're squaring that with some of the information that you guys have been able to collect from the scene. So you got DNA, has all that DNA been processed through the FBI lab? Have y'all been able to grab all the technology and all that information from the servers, the Wi-Fi, all that stuff, has that already been processed?
We are continuing to ask for the public's help, especially for video surveillance. We believe that in many cases, what's not on a video is actually just as important as what is on a video. As far as all the evidence that's been collected, most of that actually went to the Idaho State Police Crime Lab, and our scientists are working. It's a high priority for this case, and they've been working 24/7 to really turn around the evidence and provide that analytics basically
So
back
we're
to us.
still going to be getting some more information from that information that they've collected that hasn't already all been, I mean, it's a big crime scene in there. They haven't processed all that information just yet.
That's correct.
All the subjects that were there, that means the people that came from the fraternity house, the witnesses there on the scene that were asleep during this allegedly, have they all been clear from this investigation?
What I can tell you is that the roommates that were there and the people that called 911, so that would be all the people that were in the house, detectives at this point in time do not believe that any of them were involved. All of them have been cooperative and all of them have helped with the investigation.
So there's been a lot of talk about a dog being at the scene that may have been one of the victim's dog. My question is, was the dog present in one of the rooms, or was the dog just roaming somewhere in the house? Do we know that just yet?
Yeah, so to the best of my knowledge, we do not know that. What we do know is indeed there was a dog at the residence. Once the officers came, the dog was taken to Animal Services, where then a responsible person came and picked up the dog.
Was the dog present for the crime?
So I don't have the information and we're not sure.
And where's the dog now? Is the dog with the victim's ex-boyfriend? Can you release that information?
So that's really not our information to release. We do know that the dog was taken to Animal Services and then a responsible person came and took the dog.
Is the dog any part of the investigation at this point right now?
I mean, I don't have the answer for you. I'm not sure.
We learned through some of the press conferences as well.
He's been listening to gossip.
Directly from some of the victims' parents that there was a targeted
Something.
subject there. One of the deceased victims was the target. Can you tell me who was targeted, or were there multiple people that were targeted during that incident?
So that's actually a real difficult question. And the reason why is because that would be pertinent to the investigation. I think what we have been very consistent in saying is that we believe that this was targeted. We have not come out and said it's targeted to one person or to multiple people. That's all part of that investigation that ultimately will come out. But just right now, it's pretty pertinent to our investigation.
Good copy, good copy. I've been following you guys' timeline, and you update it as you guys get more information. Xana and Ethan, Mr. Chapin, I looked at the timeline. There's a missing block between 9 p.m. and 1:45 a.m. Our team has tried to put together a map and kind of figure out if there's any sources or anything that can provide us information. Have y'all been able to feel that part of?
On the above screen, it has 8 to 9 p.m. Ethan and Xana at Sigma Chi Party, 735 Nez Perce Drive. And at 1:45 a.m., Ethan and Xana are at the residence, 1122 King Road. Do they have this information from someone's surveillance cameras and data from the kids' phone? Because in order to give an approximate time, 8 to 9, they were at a party. Is this from accounts of people there, or they've already pinged the phones? Just curious. What has the phones showed so far of all the participants in the house and people they've talked to? What pings have come back pertaining to all decedents and the roommates that are alive?
That can provide us information. Have y'all been able to feel that part of the timeline in? Because that would probably be critical to you guys' investigation, right?
Yeah, that would be very important. And so as detectives are out and about, that's also what we're trying to do. And so anybody that has information, we would love to talk with them. We would love video, ring camera, just anybody with thoughts and concerns about that. We want to talk to them. We want to make sure that we have a crystal clear picture of where the victims went, where they were that night.
Is the fraternity house a part of the crime scene?
As part of the crime scene, no, but they do. The people within the fraternity house would have pertinent information. Potentially they saw something out of the ordinary. Maybe there were some interactions, those types of things. And so anybody with that information we want to talk to.
I don't want to get into the investigation. Obviously, you have to protect that. But the theory of there being what people call a peeping Tom Is that still an option that someone was in the woods looking at these victims? And if that is true, should the public still be concerned right now? Because that person is still out on the loose.
So that's a two-part question. So the first part of that question is essentially, have we ruled anything out? And I can tell you unequivocally, we have not. As we're gaining this picture of what occurred, I think we're going to be able to hopefully ascertain kind of the facts of the case and potentially come up with some sort of idea. We do not want to get pigeonholed into anything because we would feel that we would miss the other facts. And right now, since we don't have a specific direction in which to go, we don't want to miss the other facts. The second part of that question, I think, is more about the public safety and the public concern, fear in the community. We recognize there's fear in the community. Ultimately, there is a person or persons that is in either our community or someone else's community who's committed 4 murders. And so people need to be alert and aware.
Obviously, you got somebody that's on the loose right now. There's a lot of fear with the public. Based on what you guys have been able to collect, and y'all have profilers there on the team, BAU unit is here, why not go ahead and release that profile?
So we don't currently have a suspect. And so as we build that picture, that information from BAU is going to be critical into trying to develop that. And so if we just provide information to the public, I just don't think that that's going to be a wise choice. It will potentially put more fear, more suspicion on a wide variety of people versus if we use that to really refine where we're at in our investigation. I think that'll be more pertinent.
Based on the profile that BAU has been able to gather, and again, I understand this is crucial to your investigation, do you believe that this suspect has the ability to attack again, or do you think this was an isolated incident, that he was specifically targeting individuals or an individual there at that house?
You know, so I think we have to kind of go back to our standard is that we believe that this was a targeted incident.
So you don't think this, based on the profile, this person or persons will attack again?
I would hate to speculate on anything like that. If you say one way or the other, I think that you'd be doing a disservice to the community. So ultimately, we know that there's somebody who has some people, right? Ultimately, we know that there's a person or persons that is in a community somewhere that has committed 4 murders. And I think it's important for the public to know that while they may not see a lot of activity in and out of the house, they may not hear about a lot of the different interviews that are occurring, but we're making substantial progress. We have a lot of people working on this case. And, you know, our ultimate resolution is that we would like to find a suspect, make an arrest, and then go through the judicial process, because that's what would be appropriate.
Hey, Sean Hannity here.
All right, Fox News is the source. Let's chop up what was said. Well, this guy was very forceful with his commentary and asking these questions with this spokesman. Let's chop up the information. Idaho State Police are analyzing the data for these crimes. Moscow is the lead in this investigation. They have ruled out the roommates that were left behind, and they have been cooperating. The dog was picked up by someone from the animal services, and this gentleman did not have information on who that certain person was. The reporter was going on and on about this dog for some reason, as if the dog could talk. Last I checked, dogs can't talk, so I don't know why he kept going on and on about that dog. The dog isn't going to tell us anything, whether the dog saw the killer, knew the killer, or witnessed the killings. So why were you going on and on about the dog? I'm just curious. Interesting. Then you go on to ask, did the boyfriend pick up the dog? And he couldn't answer that question. So, sir, have you been hearing gossip that the boyfriend came and got the dog? Where are we going with this? Are you listening to Facebook rumors? Because sometimes reporters do subtly enter in info that's from rumor and rhetoric. I'm just curious. Very curious. One of the parents said that one of the children was the target. Whose parent said that? I'm curious. But you hear this spokesman not wanting to say which one or if all, but that it was a targeted crime. So I want to know the parent that believes his or her child was the target, and why do you feel that child was the target? So what are you saying? The other people were collateral damage because they were in the house. The person or persons killed them just in case they decided to wake up? Because that would be a very good theory, that it was only one target, but I'm going to take them all out just in case they interrupt my dirty business, because I'm not going to leave a stone unturned. As mother used to say growing up, kill two birds with one stone. And instead, if it was one target, they killed three. As not to have any witnesses. They have not ruled anything out. Don't want any pigeonholes. Don't want to be specific about anything pertaining to the case. They have no specific, direction to go. And to me, that statement is very scary. This representative is being very honest, but scary, because you have no profile, allegedly. You have no suspect, allegedly. So one is going to say, how can you say that this is targeted? I'm going to lean on faith that you know what you're doing and that you see something and seen something to lead you to believe it was targeted. So now we have to go back to what I've asked earlier in my live. What was left behind by the perpetrators for these law officials to believe these children were targeted? What was left behind? Did they leave a note? Did they leave something scribbled on the wall? Did they leave a nice little subtle message? Because you'll be surprised the dirty things people leave behind after they have brutally murdered, mutilated a human body. They like to sometimes play funny games with the police. No specific direction. Very scary. The reporter asks about the perpetrator having the ability to attack again. His response is that it was targeted. Hate to speculate because it would do a disservice to the community, naturally put people up in fear, but the people aren't fearing for their safety because you don't have anyone arrested. And I'm going to go out on a limb and say what is the obvious. If you could kill 4 people, you could kill 6. You could kill 12. Once you make it to 4, you haven't been apprehended in 2 weeks. I won't doubt that you could kill anybody. What's the difference? 4, 7, 8. It's just a number. You were bold enough to walk up in these people's house and kill them for whatever reason. You're bold enough to kill 4 or 5 more people and not even blink. His other response is that somewhere, someone has committed this crime and they're out here in the community walking around. And I say, if they did it this time, they would gladly do it again. Because you've killed 4 and you're free. So why not have a bad day and kill somebody else? It's very scary. Let's see what else we have on the agenda. Trying to play you all content that's been uploaded recently pertaining to this case. Fox News was that last source, uploaded 18 hours ago. Interview with Idaho State, a police representative, spokesperson. We got information that the students don't want to return back. Some students do not want to return back to the university. I don't blame them. And I also would be petrified for my life if I lived in that apartment complex on the right of the property and that house that sits to the left of the property. Very, very scary. Fox News, once again, is the source. Let's see what's going on with these kids.
The gruesome slaying of 4 University of Idaho students who were stabbed in their sleep. On Friday, investigators returned to the crime scene, leaving with bags of evidence, raising many questions about where this investigation stands nearly 2 weeks later. Former FBI Assistant Director Chris Swecker explaining how important the evidence collectors are in solving this case.
They may have brought a specialist on the scene, for example, serology or hairs and fibers, and just to make sure that there's nothing that was uncollected, because the evidence is only as good as the collector of the evidence and the expertise of the collector.
Police have said this was a targeted attack, but won't reveal who was specifically targeted, leaving many confused, including Steve Goncalves, the father of one of the victims, Kaylee Goncalves.
Do you know if police believe one person in the house was the target of this attack, or all four?
I've been told it's one, but then again, there's the vagueness. Like, it's like purposely vague, I'm hoping, but.
This is Kaylee's father speaking with two other relatives in this interview, and he says he was told one. Maybe that's the information that he wasn't supposed to reveal to the public. So who is the one that was targeted? Because I told myself, I just find it hard to believe 4 people were targeted, because one didn't live there, and that's Ethan. His girlfriend lived there, but he did not live there. So therefore, your target would have had to been 3 or less. So therefore, who was the target? Very interesting information. Very interesting information. And he says they were vague. I guess they don't trust talking to anybody because they don't know who the culprit is. So they don't want to tell too much as to compromise the investigation. Although these are family members, but we do know in true crime, people will run their mouth and talk and tell things to the general public, social media, which is what he's doing right here by telling us one was the target when they have basically said it was targeted, but we're not saying 1 or 4. And I doubt that they're pleased with him saying that. And that's why he doesn't want to get in a stir with these people, because he knows he needs their help. As he said in the earlier commentary, I am doomed without them. So he doesn't want to rock the boat, but he's already let the cat out of the bag, if we're to believe what he's saying is the truth, that there's only one target and the others were collateral damage. Is that the truth? The other 3 were in the way. Got to knock them off, because we don't need no disturbances. We don't need no Captain Save-A-Hose to stop me from what I came to do. Wow. That's even more scary. You were willing to kill other people to make sure you could make it out of that house with no eyewitnesses, no testimonies later, no pointing the finger at you as the culprit. You were bold. You were bold to go in there for any reason. But to kill other people who didn't have a dog in the race is even more cruel. And 9 times out of 10, whatever your reasons were for the one, if we are to believe it was the one, is petty and mundane. Something you could have shrugged off and kept it moving. But we know that people don't have that type of mindset. I'm mad at you, I want revenge, and I'm going to take you out one way or the other.
Purposely vague, I'm hoping, but it confuses everyone. Yeah. Because nobody knows what that really means, other than maybe somebody had a different kind of attack footprint.
Charlie, I got to be honest. You have kids, I have kids. I'm not sure I send my kid back there.
Can you imagine?
Yeah.
Can you imagine?
Suspect on the loose. They don't really seem to have any definitive leads, or at least they're not sharing them. So in a place like that could be so isolated if you're off campus, I'm sorry. I'm thinking transfer, or I'm doing remote learning, which the university is doing right now.
Or can you imagine a kid enrolled in the place having to face this as if they don't have enough problems in their life anyway, going back to a situation like this? I was really struck by that, by the father's comment about purposely vague. Obviously you kind of hope that maybe the police are, you pray the police know more than they're sharing, and clearly they do know more than they're sharing, and you hope that they are indeed being purposefully vague, hopefully to sort of keep whoever it is they have in their crosshairs unaware that they are onto them. But, it's such a gruesome thing, and the thing that puzzles me is that it's such the manner in which these kids were murdered is such an intimate way. It was done in such an intimate manner that you would think that it was somebody that knew somebody that the perpetrator knew the victims.
He can't get it out.
Ooh, Lord. How does somebody like this manage to kill 4 people? And it's appalling, but.
Right. You would think after the first victim was attacked, obviously there would be some scream. There would be something that wakes the other folks up to either get out of there or attack.
And the amount of hatred required to do this to one person, how does a person have that kind of hatred in their heart for 4 people?
Yeah. All right. Well, let's hear from James Fitzgerald. He is a retired FBI criminal profiler. He analyzes who the killer could be and the level of sophistication, to Charlie's point, behind it.
A knife wound, wounding with a knife or killing with a knife is a whole different set of physical and emotional reactions. And times that by 4, as we have in this case, how he got into the scene, how he perhaps a pre-offense behavior was how he explored perhaps the interior of the apartment or had schematics about it or actually was in there on other times. And of course, the post-offense behavior in getting away with this crime. He apparently left no fingerprints behind, no blood on his part, and no DNA. And there's some sophistication before and after the crime, even if the violent crime itself lacks some of that therein.
Jackie, that's worth repeating. The killer apparently left no fingerprints behind, no blood, no DNA, and he somehow killed 4 people, not with a gun, which can be done fairly quickly, but with a knife. I mean, this thing is so crazy, so disturbing, and the thing is, it feels like we're not even close to finding it.
Let me say this. How do you all know that no DNA was left behind? No fingerprints were left behind? Because as they have said in the earlier commentary, if a person doesn't have a criminal record, they wouldn't be in the COVID system. So you don't have anything to go on except for trying to figure out who all went in there and ask everybody that knows these people to give their DNA. But we have not got any information of DNA, fingerprints, hair, fiber, anything under the victim's nails, because we do believe somebody fought back. So police have not told us anything about that. So why do you all assume there was no DNA left behind by the perpetrator? We don't even know what the perpetrator had on. If they had on gloves, if they had on a ski mask, if they had on a hat, toboggan, none of that's been revealed. Now, you all are kind of jumping the gun just a bit. Because 9 times out of 10, gloves or not, you're stabbing someone times 4, you've possibly cut yourself. So if you had on knit gloves, the knit gloves would have been torn by the knife. And who's to say you didn't cut wearing leather gloves, if indeed the perpetrator wore gloves? It's soon to say someone didn't leave DNA. I'm just saying.
This thing is so crazy, so disturbing, and the thing is, it feels like we're not even close to finding out who did this.
No, I don't think we are, and I actually was thinking that the DNA aspect of this would be fascinating. It would crack this case open and probably pretty quickly, but the fact that this person was experienced enough not to leave fingerprints, or at least, we were talking about having skill in picking up the evidence, right? At least to our knowledge, and leaving no DNA behind. There is evidence that these victims were defensive.
Yes, they fought.
There were some defensive wounds, that they did fight back. And so I wondered to myself how it's possible that somebody didn't have some DNA fibers under their nails or however they did try to fight back, right? It seems almost impossible to me. And that's where the skill level comes in. And you say, was this a team that knew exactly what it was doing? On top of it, my understanding is that morning before the authorities came, that was a crime scene. Other people were entering that crime scene. So it wasn't, completely intact by the time that they got there. And these are a lot of questions, but I imagine for parents who have children that go to not only this university or other universities as well, this is terrifying behavior, and it's really scary. So much time has passed without any lead, being released to the public at this point.
Please.
And I've seen other reports that apparently it was sloppy. So it's just the more information we find out, the more contradictions and conflicting information seems to be out there. But how do you not leave DNA behind with 4 different victims?
Exactly.
And if some of the victims, which we've heard had defensive wounds, means that they fought back. You would have to imagine that they screamed. How did the other victims not hear that? And how did 2 people in the house apparently not wake up during all of this? I mean, none of it makes sense. And look, I've been in college. I'm sorry, Mom and Dad. I've been drunk as a skunk before. And you would think you would still wake up if you hear this going on. And there was 2 different floors that this took place in, different rooms. It's just hard to imagine that someone could get in not wake anyone up, and commit, 4 murders in a house over that time span. So just none of this makes sense whatsoever. And I got to tell you, I'm a gun owner, and I think every American that lives in a state where they can own a gun, law-abiding gun owners, you should. Because I got to tell you, try showing up to my apartment, it's going to go down a little bit differently. I think every American deserves to be armed and should. I mean, we live in a completely depraved society.
We'll have to leave it there. Great points all.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey,
well, I'm surprised she said all that on a live stream. Some might say, well, it is Fox. So there you have it. Fox News is the source. I will agree with what she said as far as DNA. No one has told us that DNA was not found because they're in the early stages of the investigation. They don't even have a suspect and a profile allegedly, if they're telling us the truth. There's no way I'm going to believe the perpetrators didn't leave something behind. Because one, you already told us that they left something behind to tell us that it was targeted, to tell you all that it was targeted. So if somebody fought back more than one victim, you don't know if they grabbed chunks of hair, skin, scratched the victim, because they wouldn't be souped up to go to war, sleep. They'd have on pajamas. So who's to say they didn't grab the perpetrator's face, pull a mask off, hat off, toboggan off, ski mask off, stocking off? May have grabbed something on a shirt, sweatshirt, pulled a string on a sweatshirt because we don't even know what the perpetrator was wearing. And then as she said in his commentary, which is conflicting, is that it was a sloppy job done. So sloppy means they left behind something. So that is contradictory to no DNA or anything left behind. So that means blood was probably everywhere, as it would be. You're stabbing a person. You stabbed 4 people. You want me to believe he only stabbed or she only stabbed one person, then went to the next person, stabbed her one time, then went to the next room, stabbed her one time, then went to the next room, stabbed that person one time, then walked out. No. Gory scene is what was said. Sloppy has been said. So therefore, perpetrator left behind something. And as I said before in my live, you want me to believe the perpetrator didn't bathe and wash off? Stay woke. He or she or they had to clean up. Because if you came on foot, you get ready to walk down a public street, even in the AM, with blood on your clothes, your face, your hands. You're going to risk walking into your home bloody? They had to go sleep somewhere. Unless they were close by, such as the house that sits to the left and the apartment that sits to the right. But it's still risque because you don't know who's up, looking out the window, sitting outside, smoking a cigarette, walking a dog, getting in the car, leaving in a car, coming in a car. You can never assume that nobody's going to see you because it's late in the morning. Very, very interesting. That was the profiler's assertion of no DNA left behind. Nobody said that. The cop said that. That's somebody's opinion. What was left behind by the perpetrator? Did the perpetrator leave fibers, clothing fibers, hair follicles, shedding of hair, short hair, long hair, beard, mustache, clean shaven? Did they wear boots, tennis shoes, overcoat, sweatshirt, tracksuit? What? How did they enter the place? Climbed up the balcony? Went through a door, window? What? Was a window or door left unopened? Somebody didn't shut a door properly. Because if you've been drinking, it's easy to not close a door. You can do it even when you're sober. Especially if you're carrying things in your hand and you come in, maybe you put something on a desk or a countertop and didn't close the door, because I've done that recently. Thought my door was closed all the way. It wasn't. The bottom lock was locked, but the door wasn't shut all the way. Easy for a perpetrator to just come by looking and say, oh, that door isn't locked. That's why you have to be aware of your surroundings. Make sure all your windows are closed before going to sleep. It's dangerous to sleep with a window cracked, because that is what a perpetrator is looking for. That one opportunity to catch you sleeping with your screen pulled up, but maybe the glass door is open. All they got to do is cut the screen. Cut the screen even to a window. Fox News was the source of that information. Thank you all so much. Some students are not wanting to return. I don't know why they mentioned that in this article because they really didn't even talk about the students not returning very much in that said commentary. Bringing you all said information uploaded as of late pertaining to this gruesome crime. All righty. I think I played that already. Alarm helping students stay safe after Idaho quadruple murder. This was uploaded one day ago. Fox 13 Seattle is the source. Thank you all so much for joining me.
Idaho. Now the FBI is helping local and state police conduct interviews, collect evidence, and bring justice to a community reeling from unspeakable violence. Fox 13 News reporter Steve Kiggins shows how university alumni tried to bring some peace in this chaos.
It's definitely made me feel just really proud to be a Vandal, proud of what we can accomplish as a community, just to show our support.
Kelly Ularn wanted to do something after 4 University of Idaho students were found murdered in their rental home in Moscow, Idaho, November 13th. The college town she remembered from 2007, the small and safe home of U of I, felt like it belonged in another galaxy.
I think a lot of people really felt helpless, didn't know what they could do to help in this situation. So I think it's kind of just given everybody a focus, something that they can contribute to so they feel like they're doing something to help the community.
Helping her community meant finding peace of mind for loved ones and sorority sisters in a college town which feels very different than she remembers.
It's a very loud sound, very bright light. Hopefully, can deter or at least bring attention to somebody once it's pulled.
Her bright idea was the She's Birdie's keychain alarm. She says the loud, flashing device could provide a sense of security in a place for many that feels anything but right now.
It started pretty simply. I posted on our Delta Gamma alumni group on Facebook and asked if there was an interest, if people would be willing to donate so that we could provide some of these for our chapter. From there, the ladies thought it was a great idea, wanted every girl to have one if possible. Then it just kind of kept spreading, like, hey, let's involve some of the other houses. Let's try and get some for them. From there, it's like, just let's try to get one to anyone on campus that wants one.
In 1 week, Ularn says she's raised more than $18,000 in donations with help from the Greek community and beyond.
Ultimately, there is a person or persons, in someone's community, maybe this one, that has, murdered 4 people. And so, our goal and our entire drive is to find the people responsible.
The Idaho State Police says the FBI now joins a massive law enforcement front, chasing down leads, narrowing the search for suspects, all trying to bring justice for the 4 young lives taken.
We recognize that there is fear in the community and that people want this solved.
For Ularn, the keychain alarm is a sense of security and community in a time where both seem beyond reach.
Completely overwhelmed. It's been amazing, though. There's been so much positivity around this.
Steve Kiggins, Fox 13 News.
All right, everybody. The sad part about this situation is that the alarm is no help to you if you're sleeping, because you won't have time to grab it to use when the perpetrator is inside and pouncing on top of you, shooting you, stabbing you, or beating you to death. That's the worst part about it. Unless you're sleeping with it around your neck on a string, and the next phase would be, will somebody hear it to wake up to come in and render aid to you? But I understand they're trying to do whatever they can that they think would be of use and helpful to the students. That's all the audio I have to play. I'm going to read an article, and this is going to be pertaining to the timeline. Thank you for joining me. NewYorkTimes.com is the source. Latest on the University of Idaho killings, what we know. The gruesome stabbing deaths of 4 University of Idaho students remain unsolved. The police asked the public to continue sending tips. Investigators have now processed more than 1,000 tips in the aftermath of the gruesome stabbing deaths of 4 University of Idaho students, but the authorities said Friday that they still do not have a suspect in the killings that have mystified and shaken this college town. After the early morning killing spree in Moscow, Idaho, on November 13th, authorities sought to calm the community by saying that the attack at a home near campus was an isolated case and that there was no danger to the public, but the authorities have walked back those assurances in days since. On Wednesday, investigators said they had collected 103 pieces of evidence, taken about 4,000 photographs, produced multiple three-dimensional scans of the crime scene, and conducted more than 150 interviews. They asked the public for both patience and tips. This is our highest priority, said Captain Roger Lanier of the Moscow Police Department. It will remain our highest priority. We owe that to the families. The details that have emerged have only deepened the mystery surrounding the grisly killings of the 4 students who appeared to have been spending a typical Saturday night in a community that had not recorded a murder in 7 years. They were stabbed to death inside a rental house, while 2 others who lived there apparently slept through the attack. Phone logs indicate that 2 of the victims made several unanswered calls to a friend in the early hours, and no one called 911 to report the attack until about noon. 3 of the victims, Madison Mogen, 21, Kaylee Gonkovs, 21, and Xana Carnotto, 20, lived at the house, and the 4th, Ethan Chapin, 20, was there visiting his girlfriend, Miss Carnotto. Here is what we know so far. In the hours before the killings, many students were out for a typical Saturday night of socializing following a University of Idaho football game. From about 8 to 9, Mr. Chapin and Miss Carnotto attended a party at the Sigma Chi fraternity, the police said. The couple, who had been dating since the spring, returned to Miss Carnotto's home at about 1:45 a.m. At about 11 p.m., Miss Mogen and Miss Gonkovs went to the Corner Club bar together, staying there until 1:30 a.m., investigators said. About 10 minutes later, Miss Mogen and Miss Gonkovs stopped at a late-night food truck where a live-stream video camera captured them arriving to order food. They mingled with others along the sidewalk, chatting and smiling, and then departed once their food was ready. The police said a private party gave them a ride home. At 1:56 a.m., the neighbor's surveillance camera showed Miss Mogen and Miss Gonkovs returning to the house. Miss Gonkovs' older sister said between 2:26 and 2:52 a.m., phone logs showed that 7 unanswered phone calls were placed from Miss Gonkovs' phone to a friend, according to her older sister, Olivia. Several calls to the same friend were also placed using Miss Morgan's phone, the police said. Olivia said the calls were to Jack Tukur, a fellow student who had been Kaylee Gonkovs' boyfriend for several years until recently, when they decided to take an amicable break. She said Mr. Tukur missed the calls because he was sleeping and that her sister's phone account did not show any other calls for that time period. What to know about the Idaho killings? The authorities are still piecing together what happened at a home near the University of Idaho campus in Moscow, Idaho, where 4 students were found. The victims, Ethan Chapin, Madison Mogen, Xana Carnotto, and Kaylee Gonkovs, were found dead on November 13th in what the local mayor described as a crime of passion. Fear on campus. After the bodies were discovered, some students at the university prepared to leave town. Others stayed behind, fearing the uncertainty around them. A lingering threat. As the police struggled to identify a suspect, officials said they could not rule out risks for the community in the college town. Key facts. Detectives, internet sleuths, and victims' relatives have been trying to figure out who might have had a motive to kill the students. Here is what we know. Mr. Tukur declined to discuss the cause. Olivia said she and her family stand behind Jack 100% and know he absolutely had nothing to do with this at all. She said that her sister frequently called people late at night and often kept calling until they picked up, even if to ask a mundane question like what she ought to have for a meal. Investigators have said that the 4 victims were killed early on Sunday, November 13th, but they have not specified a time. All 4 were probably asleep at the time they were attacked and may have been in their beds, according to Kathy Mabbitt, the Ladder County coroner. She said that all 4 appeared to have been stabbed multiple times with a large knife and that some of the victims probably tried to fight back. The attacks left a gruesome, bloody scene that investigators have been examining for days. It's such a horrific crime, Ms. Mabbitt said. It's hard to think that somebody, whether they live here or they were here, commits something like that and is at large. None of the victims showed signs of sexual assault, Ms. Mabbitt said. The police said that while the 4 friends were being killed, 2 other female housemates were in the house but were not attacked. Investigators suggested that those 2 had slept through the killings. The house had 6 bedrooms with 2 on each floor. Did somebody hear that? 2 on each floor. So, in order to have 6 rooms and 2 on each floor means you'd have to have 3 floors. Just saying that in case somebody don't understand math. The police said the victims were found on the 2nd and 3rd floors and declined to say whether there was evidence of the attacker visiting the 1st floor. That's very interesting that they won't reveal whether there was evidence of the attacker visiting the 1st floor. Why not? And why didn't this ex-boyfriend want to talk about the phone calls made to his phone? What's the big deal? You didn't have anything to do with it. Her family's allegedly backing you as not the type of person to do this, which you should never say that because you don't know people. Because I got a funky feeling the perpetrator is known to the victims due to the fact that it wasn't a break-in. So that leaves the option of they let him in or they left a window or door open. So why didn't this ex-boyfriend want to talk to the news about her calling the phone? What's the big deal? If she just called, you didn't answer, so what is it so secretive to say? They already then tapped in the phones to show she called, or is it perhaps she sent text messages and you don't want those messages revealed to the public? You know, Queen's woke. So it's something about that phone call you don't want to talk about because perhaps she sent you messages from both phones because we have information that she called you from her phone. You didn't answer, so she called from the other girl's phone. And perhaps she sent not so nice text messages from those phones, and you don't want to reveal what she said. Now. My. But this is the same guy they're upholding. Go figure. When the 2 surviving housemates woke up, they called some of their friends to the house because they believed that one of the women who lived upstairs had passed out and was not waking up. After the friends arrived, someone from the group called 911 just before noon, and the police arrived to find the 4 stabbing victims. Let's stop right there. I find it strange still, no blood was mentioned. When this first came out, that they thought somebody had passed out and dialed 911. No blood was mentioned, saying, hey, I saw blood, and that's why I called 911. So what made you go to this certain person's room, or where did you find this certain person passed out to where you felt you needed to call 911? And which roommate is this that did the calling or the finding of the victim? And who actually made the 911 phone call? All of this is very grainy and suspect to me. I'm going to say it because it is. Because I just find it strange that you're going to find somebody, but what you don't mention is, oh, I saw blood. I saw a trail of blood. So on 2 floors, it's got to be a bloody mess because I just brought you commentary where the news reporter said it was sloppy. It was gruesome. This article says the same. So nobody saw blood when they found the person passed out. You just said, oh, I tried to wake her. She wouldn't get up. Let's call 911. And then the police comes and then listen very carefully to what I'm getting ready to say. Are you listening? The police shows up and then they find the other victims. Now put that on paper. Think about what I just said. You go find one victim. Never mentioned that it was a bloody scene or saw blood. Just said that person passed out. You were concerned. You dialed 911. But only when the police come do they find that person dead and then 3 others dead. And you've been in the house this whole time with a total of 4 dead bodies But it only took you calling on the one girl that led the police to come to find the other 3 dead. Make it make sense. Because it don't. See, this is why I don't listen to gossip. And he said, she said, I listen to what the police say. And I know this doesn't sound right. And I've told you before, was the victim lying face down to where their blood was pooling under their garment and you couldn't see that they were stabbed? So you went to wake her up. Where was she? In the bed? In the floor? In the bathroom? The bathtub? Day room? Living room? And yet other people are bleeding in their rooms. You don't know that they're bleeding. Just the one. And there's nothing really suspicious about that because maybe you had wanted to talk to that one person to see if they were up. And they weren't. She was dead. But what is strange is that we hear that the crime scene was sloppy, bloody. So I want to ask the ladies and your so-called friends, did you not see blood near the passed out victim? And why was that not mentioned early on in this storyline? I'm just saying. Oh, maybe they forgot that. I'm sorry. Once again, 2 surviving housemates woke up, called some of their friends to the house because they believed that one of the women lived upstairs and passed out. Let's talk about that. Why did you not call 911? When you try to wake a person, wouldn't you move them? At some point, I think you would smell blood because Queen knows what blood smells like because she has been in the house of someone who killed themselves. And they killed themselves upstairs. And the smell of blood, which smells like iron, was prevalent when I walked in the front door. Bring it to them, Queen, because they ain't ready for that. So I'm going to ask you again, if they've been dead since at least 3-something-4, you trampled in the room at what time trying to wake this person up? You didn't smell blood in the room? You're a female, you should know what blood smells like. And trust me, blood from a dead person is going to be quite stinky and quite loud. I'll wait. See, I don't miss anything. What time did you find the victim? And why didn't you call 911 when you thought the person didn't wake up? You went and called your other friends. Woo, Queen, don't do it to them because they ain't ready for this. But yet you got some other dead folks in the rooms. Did you not think to go wake them up? Wow. See the things you miss when you're not paying attention? 6 people in a house. 2 are alive. 2 go to wake up one person or discover them passed out. Don't mention seeing blood. But yet they don't think to go ask the other alleged woke people or alive people, what do you know about this person that won't wake up? And naturally, they couldn't wake them up because they were dead. So what time did the 2 roommates get up that morning? That is number 1. Number 2, how did you come to discover the passed out girl? Number 3, why didn't you notice blood? 4, why didn't you mention blood? 5, why would you call outsiders when you had other people in the house that you could have went to ask about the passed out person? Or is it that you found the other people dead? Ding, 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 ding. Oh, the plot thickens. Did you find the other people dead before or after the alleged passed out person? And you got scared and called outsiders to come over for some odd and peculiar reason, yet you all have been ruled out as culprits. Maybe you didn't have anything to do with the deaths of these people, but your behavior is peculiar. Because if I couldn't wake up one person and I thought perhaps possibly he or she might be dead, why am I getting ready to call my other friends when I got I've got 3 other roommates or 2 other roommates in the house? That's strange to me. Why not go try to wake up the other roommates? So I'm going to ask you, did you go to those other girls' rooms and realize they were dead? Because the perpetrator had to have had blood coming in and out of those rooms because he or she or they went from floor to floor. So they left a trail. And I'm thinking possibly you knew the other ones were dead. But for some reason you froze, panicked, and called your other friends. And then you all called 911. Why would you do that? Let's finish this article up. After the friends arrived, someone from the group called 911 just before noon, and the police arrived to find the 4 stabbing victims. Investigators have declined to release a recording or transcript of the 911 call. So let's dissect what was said here. Police arrived to find the 4 stabbing victims. Was the one passed out the actual number 4 stabbing victim? Or was this somebody else in the house passed out? So somebody wanted to throw that in there, which made no sense. I think the news would have told us there was another person in there passed out but wasn't murdered. Very interesting. The police said the 2 surviving... Oh, before I get to that, investigators have declined to release a recording or transcript of the 911 call. And naturally, they've never mentioned the 911 call, asked to preserve the investigation. But all this seems very strange to me that somebody wakes up, they call some of their friends to the house because they believe that one of the women lived upstairs, had passed out, wasn't waking up. Friends arrived, and someone from the group called 911 before noon. So which person called 911? Was it one of the roommates or one of the friends that was invited over? And this is not to show any disrespect to the remaining 2, but it sounds off. Because people are going to want to know, why were you calling outside people pertaining to one that's in the house that's dead, and you didn't go look in the other people's room to check on them to say, hey, I can't wake up Susie Mae. And then you would have found that they were dead. That's where this is strange. The police said the 2 surviving housemates had each been out of town separately on Saturday and had returned to the house by about 1. So were these 2, this is new news to me because I hadn't heard this, the 2 remaining roommates that are alive, were they together when they went out of town, or they were out of town separately? Just curious. And they had returned to the house at 1. So that means they were in the house first. If we're to believe their account that they came back to the house at 1 o'clock, then the 2 girls came back to the house next, and then Ethan and Xana came back third. Is everybody paying attention to the information? And as I said before, what is the evidence to all of these time frames to be documented? The only thing would be surveillance cameras, doorbell cameras, and their cell phones. Very interesting. Investigators have yet to identify a suspect. They have, however, preliminarily ruled out several people. A man seen with Miss Goncalves and Miss Mogen in the video footage at the food truck. The man who gave Miss Goncalves and Miss Mogen a ride home. The 2 surviving housemates who were in the house during the attack. The friends who were called to the house by surviving housemates the morning after the attacks. Mr. Decour and the former boyfriend of one victim, and the victims themselves. The authorities have left open the possibility that there have been more than one perpetrator. Investigator contacted local businesses to see if anyone had recently bought a fixed blade knife. Chief James Fry of the Moscow Police Department said on Sunday that he could not say whether the killer was still in town or had fled. I can't say if the person's here, he said. I can't say what the community the person's in. With no one under arrest in the case, people in Moscow and internet sleuths have been trading theories and unverified stories. Yes, they have. That's why you don't pass lies. Prompting the authorities to plead for people to stop spreading rumors. I agree. After stories began to spread this week about mysterious animal deaths before the killings, including a report that a dog had been skinned, investigators said they had determined that the animal deaths were unrelated to the deaths of the 4 students. On Wednesday, investigators said they had been told in interviews that Miss Goncalves had made some comments about a stalker before her death. They said they have been unable to corroborate that information, but continue to examine it. Ms. Goncalves' sister said she had not been aware of any such concerns. On Friday, the Moscow Police Department said it had received numerous inquiries about a 1999 double stabbing in Pullman, Washington, and a 2021 double stabbing in Salem, Oregon. Officials said they do not have any evidence to indicate that the cases were related. In the first few days after the killings, the Moscow Police Department played down residents' fears about a killer on the loose. They said on the day of the attack that the department does not believe there is an ongoing community risk. And 2 days later, there was no imminent threat to the community at large. Oh my God. But 3 days after the killings, Chief James Fry pulled back from those earlier assurances. We cannot say that there is no threat to the community, he said at a news conference on November 16th. The about-face was one of several contradictory comments from the city and county officials. Art Betch, the mayor of Moscow, told the New York Times a day after the killings that the case was considered a crime of passion, but he said later that he could not say for sure. Well, you shouldn't have said that then, sir. One consistent message from the police has been that the attack appeared to have been targeted and not random. What do we even know if that's the truth? Moscow is a community of about 25,000 people on the Washington state border, and the university has 11,000 students. The city had not recorded a murder in more than 7 years. Students said in interviews that they normally felt safe walking around town late at night or leaving bikes unlocked around campus. But after the killings, many students left campus early for Thanksgiving break, worried about an apparent killer on the loose. Some students who remain have started taking more precautions and walking around in groups. A coffee shop told patrons it was closing early so that employees could get home before dark. C. Scott Green, the president of the University of Idaho, said Wednesday that the campus was continuing its heightened security and added that students will be allowed to attend classes in person or remotely for the rest of the semester. Inside of this article, you will see very nice pictures of Ethan and Xana and Kaylee and Madison. Madison Mogen, who went by Maddie, was a senior from Coeur d'Alene who was majoring in marketing. Her grandmother, Kim Chile, and Miss Mogen had always been a gentle and caring person who kept many long-term friendships and close ties with extended family. Miss Mogen's boyfriend, Jake Schreiger, said she had been excited for graduation next year and talked about wanting to explore other parts of the world. Miss Mogen always spread positivity and brought acts of kindness to others. Mr. Schreiger said, adding that he hoped people would remember her for the love she had given to others. There's no words that I can really describe her, how amazing she was, and how wonderful of a person she was, Mr. Schreiger said. Kaylee Goncalves, who was from Ratcham, Idaho, had been set to graduate early in December and planned to move to Austin, Texas with one of her close friends in June. The friend, Jordan Quesnell, said Miss Goncalves had secured a position with a marketing firm and was excited to explore more of the country. We wanted that adventure, Miss Quesnell said. I would be like, let's go do this. And she'd be like, down. Olivia Goncalves said her younger sister and Miss Mogen had served as bridesmaids for her wedding. Her sister, she said, still shared a dog with her former boyfriend, and the two had seemed likely to get back together. Ethan Shopping from Conway, Washington, was one of the 3 triplets and had spent much November 12th, the day before the killings, with both of his siblings, who are also University of Idaho students. Their mother, Stacy Chapman, said in the evening they all attended a dance together held by his sister's sorority. She said, my kids are very thankful that it was time well spent with him. Ms. Shopping said he was literally the life of the party. He made everybody laugh. He was just the kindest person. Mr. Mr. Sharpton played basketball in high school and was known by friends and family members for always having a big smile ever since he was a baby. Ms. Sharpton described her son as just the brightest light. Xana Conoto grew up in Idaho but spent time in Arizona in recent years, according to an interview that her father, Jeffrey Conoto, gave to Arizona TV station. Mr. Conoto said that the station that his daughter was strong-willed and had enjoyed having an independent life in college. He said his daughter had apparently tried to fight her attacker, an account backed up by Miss Mabbitt, the coroner. Mr. Conoto expressed shock that his daughter could be killed while at home with friends and said that he too had no idea who could have committed the attacks. She was with her friends all the time, Mr. Conoto said. If you need verification, New York Times is the source. I do find it interesting that Mr. Conoto didn't say a whole lot about his daughter as the other people who described their children. Could be nothing, could be something. But he goes in more talking about the attack than telling us anything about his daughter, that she grew up in Arizona. Well, what did she do in Arizona? What did she like to do? What were her hobbies now? What year was she in school? I don't see any of that here about Miss Conoto, which I find very interesting. That she was strong-willed and enjoyed having an independent life in college. She grew up in Idaho, but spent time in Arizona in recent years. But other than that, that's it. Very, very peculiar. Everybody was more descriptive about their sons and daughters, just as she was strong-willed and enjoyed an independent life. So I'm going to ask you, did you all have problems with your daughter, Mr. Conoto? Is that why you made that comment? She couldn't wait to get the hell out of somebody's house, perhaps, and that's normal. Miss Xana, free-spirited, wanted her own freedom. So did you all have a good relationship with her? Did she visit you all, call you all? We did hear something about her mother being arrested. What was that all about recently? So you don't really know people until you start hearing ugly stuff after someone's been hurt or dead. Don't you find that interesting? You never knew the people, never heard of them. You hear they're murdered, and all of a sudden, all these walkie-talkies start coming out, spinning webs about the sister, the brother, the cousin, the dog, the cat, the monkey. Always a tale. Very interesting. Very, very interesting. This is a very tragic case because 4 lives were snuffed out 9 times out of 10 over nothing. And I'm not about to sit here and think that somebody killed the girl because she was leaving to go out of town. What? Financial reason you all can't pay the rent on that big house? Well, then find another damn roommate. That's life. That's life. This is diabolical. Because when you send your children off to school, you're hoping that they will fare well. They will stay in their school books, won't get into trouble, won't break the law, won't get tangled up in bad relationships and courtships, won't get on drugs, won't become an alcoholic, won't have people problems. This is a time for self-discovery because children need to be around different people to see what they like, don't like. Different cultures, different races, different backgrounds. And sadly, these children snuffed out. So what was the motive for killing all 4? Was it only one person targeted or all 4? How did the person know that they were all home? How did they know that the person they targeted was home? Had they talked to the person and the person told them they were home? Stay woke. How did they get into the house? They had a code or they came through an unlocked window or door, sliding glass door. How did the perpetrator get into the house? What is the deal with the first floor, which is where the remaining roommates lived? Is there evidence that they tried to do something to those women? But then one would say, why? They couldn't have done nothing. They're alive. They weren't injured. Why not? And that's something to think about if I'm to believe this targeted mess. Why were the 2 left unharmed? How did the perpetrator get in? So imagine if the perpetrator came through the front door. It was unlocked, let's say. They went by the first floor and made their way on up to the second. So if it was targeted, then that means the perpetrator had to have known the victims. Ding. Stay woke, everybody. You bypass the living roommates' sleeping quarters to go to the second and the third floor and kill all of those people, exit out of the house, and never touch the two other girls. Why not? So there's no way in my mind I'm going to think this was random. Because a random person is not even going to know where everybody's sleeping, who's all in the house. Somebody knew these people. Because you want me to believe a random person just so happened to come into a house with an unlocked door, window, and then went in each room with what? A flashlight, looking at the girls while they slept to say, oh, this is the one I want. Oh, no, that ain't the one I want. Nope, I don't want that one either. Oh, got to go to the next floor. See where I'm going with this? Oh, got to go to the next floor. This is bullshit. This is bullshit. I believe the perpetrator had to have known them. I'm going to go out on a limb and say I think the perpetrator knew them and they knew their killers. Because the two surviving doesn't sit well with me. And I think that would be the assertion by many people. Why did somebody spare you two? Because in order to get to the second and third, I got to pass the first. I got to pass the first floor. And you heard in commentary today that there's 2 bedrooms per floor, which is 3 floors equals 6. Why were the first young ladies not touched? And how did you know that they were home? How did you get in? All these cars parked out front. How do you even know they didn't have other guests up drinking, smoking, talking, laughing, playing music, watching a movie? Make it make sense. Too fucking risky. Doorbell cameras. Cameras inside of the house, outside of the house that sits to the left. Doorbell cameras, perhaps. Because somebody does have a camera. Ding, 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 ding. That's how they know what time the girls came out. So if you went in that property by the front door, you are seen. You always leave a blueprint. And could it be that law officials have already talked to the perpetrator and ruled him or her out already? Bingo card. Imagine that. What is the motive for the killings? Who was the target? Who is the suspect or suspects? Where is he or she now? Will they be found out, discovered, apprehended? And if and when they find the killers, will they confess to the murders and give us a motive to why they snuffed out all of these young people? This is a tragedy because this has happened to others before. Many people have been murdered in their sleep or while in their home. And that is the most terrible place to be assaulted and killed, is in the comfort of your own house, because that place is supposed to be deemed sacred. And when you cannot feel safe in your own house, you don't have anything. Who wants to live in a home apartment where they don't feel safe to go to sleep? You eat there, bathe there, cook there. Your belongings are there, yet you don't feel safe there. And I can tell you this story bothered me because I was up late this morning. That's what made me do a live about this case, because I did not want to talk about this case because I knew it would have too many moving parts. And when you have too many victims, it becomes muddy. And too many people will start talking and testifying, and I don't like stories that have too many moving parts. And this one has too many moving parts already. Because these kids were college kids, and they have 4 dead. So now you got to talk about 4 different friends, family members, acquaintances. It's a lot to digest. But due to the fact that there was no break-in, due to the fact that there were different floors holding the rooms, 2 were alive and on the first floor, that leads me to believe that they knew the perpetrator and the perpetrator knew them or knew their whereabouts in the house. Because you can't logically explain bypassing the girls on the first floor. Make it make sense. And however the perpetrator entered the house, they still went to the second and the third floor, which shows intent. Why? Why those girls? Why those girls? I believe Ethan was the collateral damage, perhaps. As the old folks would say, wrong place, wrong time. But I think the killer knew and just didn't give a damn. Because if he or she had set in their mind, this is what we're going to do, it is what it is. Doesn't matter who's in the house. But it's still risque because to kill 4, one would assume it's a man. Some do not believe it could be a woman because naturally Ethan was a male. He would probably fight back after the first stab. But it's still risky even if it's a man that did it or a man with a co-conspirator. Because you had to have known who all was going to be in there, the risk of being apprehended, shot, stabbed, sprayed with mace, anything. Being seen. One of the girls getting out. Running for help. It's too risky. Cars sitting in the front of the property, which would lead somebody to say, why would you risk going in that house with all those cars there? It makes no sense to me. Why risk going to a house to stab or hurt anybody when there are numerous cars on the front of the property and you are going to see the front if that's the direction you came from? Or are we talking about the apartment that sits to the side, to the back of the property? The killer came from the apartment complex that sits above the house. Then that means the perpetrator could have came the back way, but he or she still would have to climb up on the porch on one of the pillars. And if they are in good shape, they could do it because it has been done before. Many men have scaled porches and columns and buildings and climbed onto people's balconies to assault them. So it can be done. So if they came to the back, scaled up on the balcony, then that means the balcony doors had to have been unlocked. So which way did they leave back out? And if they left out the back and climbed back down, bingo card, you would have left blood. Because you're not going to make me think you weren't bloody. This is why I tell you, nobody's thinking of all of the moving pieces pertaining to the perpetrator and his or her way in and his or her way out. You had to have left a trail coming in. Something, or going out at least. So let's say you climbed down the balcony. You would have had blood on the railing, climbing over the railing. It would have been on your clothes. You would have left scruff marks unless you cleaned up and took the jacket or clothes off. But something would have had blood on it. So that would have been either your shirt, jacket, and pants and shoes. You still would have been tracking blood through the house. second floor, third floor, whichever floor you started on. This is why I find it strange when the girls called 911 in the beginning of this debacle, you never heard them say, oh, they saw somebody bleeding, got scared, and called 911, just as somebody passed out. Well, if they changed their clothes, they were wearing women's clothes. And if the guy is 6 feet, 7 feet, how's he going to fit into girls' clothes? I've already broke up that information about changing of the clothes. Those are all women living there. So if it's a man, he can't fit into the girls' clothes. Hypothetically. Wash up, but he would still have to leave in the bloody clothes. And I'm not going to think that he brought clothes with him. So that still leaves leaving a trail, possible cleanup, possibly cut himself, left DNA at the scene, tracking blood on his shoes. How did he leave? And when he walked out or climbed over a balcony, did he walk or did he get in a car? Did he park his car around the corner, down the street, at the adjacent apartment complex that sits above this place? See, you don't know. But those are easy suspects, apartment complex, and that house that sits beside their house. Easy way to get in and easy out. But you still don't know if indeed who the perpetrator is. It's a very, very sick story. I'm not going to hold you much longer. I'm approaching hour 2. I left the link open. No one has decided to hit the link. That's fine. I will check out of here. But there's something off with this story. And naturally, the police will not tell you everything in investigation. They have left out quite a bit as not to compromise their findings. A profiler in this commentary says he doesn't believe that the perpetrator left behind anything. I don't think that's true. That's his assertion. Because one of the victims fought back. So I believe they could have grabbed hair follicles, beard, skin, anything. Because we don't even know what the person had on. No one said a guy was living there. We already know Ethan did not live there. Lord have mercy. Hello. Hello.
Hey, thanks for having me.
I beg your pardon?
Are you able to hear me okay? Are you able to hear me okay?
Where are you calling from?
Georgia.
You got something you'd like to say, ma'am?
It's a delay on the line. I'm not sure why.
If you have any information pertaining to the death of these individuals, please contact the Moscow Police Department. We will pray for their families and the community and the children attending the university, because naturally some of these students do not want to return back to school. I don't blame them. This takes me back to Ted Bundy when he killed those 2 girls at the sorority house many moons ago in Florida, and also Gainesville, Florida, when that guy was going on his crime spree, killing young people there in Florida. And that was 2 random cases where the individuals, the perpetrators, did not know the victims. And in cases like this, everything's up for interpretation. You may think that they knew the victims. You may think it was random. And as I said, it could be random if indeed someone didn't lock a door or a window. I don't know, because I don't know these girls' practices. But I think it's interesting about the two remaining roommates. There's something off to me about the calling other people. When there were other people there, they could have notified, and that's when they would have discovered that those people were deceased, and most definitely would have had a reason to then dial 911. And I do believe they would have seen blood, because it has been verified in commentary that it was a bloody scene, gory scene. So there's no way they could not have seen blood. And all these whack stories of people passing out and falling out and shocked is bullshit. There's no way you're going to tell me you're that shocked you don't think to call 911 and you see blood. Makes no sense. Makes no logical sense. I don't deal in all that hocus pocus talk. And yes, people behave differently under stress. But if I'm going to wake somebody up, or I stumble across somebody in the house, how is it that I can't see blood? Make me understand that. Because something is off there. Because that was not mentioned in the beginning. Passed out, but no mention of blood. But yet the crime scene was bloody. You heard in this commentary I played. The job was sloppy. So then one would wonder, if it was random, if it was so sloppy, or is this a first-time offender? He was all over the place, scared, erratic, frenzied, lost his mind, but didn't stop. What are we saying here? And it'll be interesting if we find out that the people that they are saying they allegedly cleared, that one of them is the suspect pertaining to these people. And you have to ask the obvious question, what is the motive? Why all four? Was one the intended target and they just cleaned house as not to be interrupted and have anyone ID them? Two were the target. Cleaned house as not to be interrupted. Or all three women were the target and then concluding the boyfriend. Strange to me. Somebody would have this much hate and anger toward four individuals. And one did not stay there. So this is very strange to me. Please be aware of your surroundings. Keep all your doors and windows locked. Be very careful coming in and out of your home, carrying parcels and bags, because this is when your defense is down. You forget about shutting the door all the way. Easy to leave your keys in the door. Keys in the door of the car. If you're driving a late model car, you have to be aware. That is why you do not rush when doing things, because this is how you are caught off guard and forget things that are important, such as running in the door, dropping things in the house, and not locking the door fully behind you. Opening the windows, nice day, forgetting to put it down and or lock the window. You have to remember these things, because this is what a perpetrator is looking for, the opportunity to infiltrate. While out shopping this holiday season, please do not leave parcels on the seat, floorboards, put everything in the trunk. Do not put TV boxes, electronic boxes out at the dumpster or the garbage can as to show people what you've purchased. Don't post things to social media. Be careful what you conversate about in public. Always have your keys ready before leaving the store. Do not fumble for keys in the middle of a parking lot or at your car. They are watching you in the car. They drive by neighborhoods watching and looking. People running in and out, not locking doors. This is the opportunity for a thief or a sadist. If you see something, say something. Be a part of the solution and not the problem. Mind the children. Happy holidays to everybody in the viewing audience. Thank you all for my new subscribers, 1,000 plus. I'm a couple hundred shy of 13,000 subscribers. Thank you all so much. And thank you for those who share my content. God bless all of you. Have a prosperous week. Please be safe out here. This is the season for pirates. So if you can't pick up your parcels at your house, have somebody go to your home to pick up your packages, or do not have them delivered to your home if you won't be there. You have to be careful and you have to be mindful of your things, your belongings, posting things to social media. There's always somebody watching, always somebody lurking. Prayers for this family. Prayers for this family, prayers for answers, prayers that they find the culprit or culprits that committed this atrocious crime against 4 children. I do not know these kids. I do not know what they've done and not done to someone for someone to have this much vengeance in their heart. Naturally, they don't have a heart, but just speaking literally, I don't know what these kids have done and not done. And it could just be the kids haven't done anything. Somebody just felt some type of way and wanted to eradicate these kids. And that would be even more baffling if we find out this is over absolutely nothing. Because even if it's petty, it's still nothing. But you do have sick people who just want to see what it's like to taste blood. And this will be more baffling if we find out that is the motive. They just wanted to see if they could kill somebody. Hey, look at those kids right there. Let's follow them. You don't know because you don't know people. You all have a wonderful week. God bless all of you. Tomorrow we'll bring you content pertaining to Shanquella Robinson. There's another network saying that there's another video surfacing pertaining to a woman who heard the screams and fighting from a back room and came out to try to stop the fight. But where I have a problem with that alleged content is that the woman still died at the villa with her so-called friends. So that means whoever went to try to allegedly intervene on behalf of Ms. Robinson, you still had to have lied in wait and watched the woman die. And I don't trust anybody spinning the story pertaining to Ms. Robinson. I don't trust the Mexican officials. I don't trust the Mexican nurse. I don't trust anybody because we know how they get down in Mexico. They do not care for their own. So why would they care for some black woman traveling down there who's been beat to death by her so-called friends? Let's keep it real. They don't love their own. And I don't know if anyone was paid off. Those are just rumors. Allegedly, they're saying the parents don't see any discrepancies with her monies. So I don't know what's the truth. So this is what happens with true crime. You never get to the truth. Always rumors, always people digging, making up stuff, passing stuff, lies, stupid theories for attention. People that know the victim wanting attention. It's sick and it's macabre. And I see more and more with this in talking about true crime. The endless lies and storytelling. It is very disrespectful. Because it is one thing to speculate about a crime, but to pass it as the truth, it's wrong. And if you know the victim, it's even more heinous that you're using their death to get 5 minutes of fame, attention. Because you should know that's going to come back on you. And this just shows how sick the world is. The endless rumors and stories pertaining to dead people. And the people that are left behind, pretending that they care for the victim, they're only making the situation worse alongside these other crazy internet junkies. It's sad to me. And it's pathetic. And I don't want no parts of it. Because I don't get a joke out of making up stuff about dead people. And I definitely, if I knew the victim, I wouldn't be spinning tall tales. But some people can do that because they don't have anything in them. No empathy. Sociopaths. That's what I'm seeing more and more. And to me, these people are no different than the person that took their life. You all have a wonderful week. God bless all of you. Stay safe. Please check out my content pertaining to Ted Bundy, uploaded yesterday, Crime Vault, my latest videos pertaining to Shanquella Robinson and the Idaho 4 student slayings. Prayers to their families and to the school, relatives, siblings, justice for these children, and prayers for this community because they're going to need it. This is Everyday Shenanigans.